Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to continue on our quest to sew our very own wedding dress. Not that I'm getting married anytime soon, but it's still fun to make elaborate dresses like this one. So I'm super excited. In last week's video we made these amazing sleeves where we embroidered a bunch. We also did cut work. So that is a very interesting video, a very big deep dive into these bad boys right here, and I explain everything that you need to know to be able to achieve these kind of sleeves on your own as well. So make sure to head over to my last video. I'll link it up here in the eye and also in the description box down below. But if you're not interested in the sleeves or you want to make a sleeveless gown, you're totally fine with this video because I am going to explain to you step by step on how to make the actual dress that I designed. As always, the direct link to the pattern is in the description box down below. That's the most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming. So make sure to click that link and to check out my store, and maybe you'll find an interesting pattern that you want to remake yourself. So thank you so much. Let's get on with the video. So I'm gonna start with the sewing process now, and what I will be doing is starting off with the bodice. And I made sure to cut out all of my pattern pieces out of my fabric, my shell fabric, which is this really nice rayon satin, and then another layer out of a thicker interlining fabric. I'm just using some white denim right here because it's sturdy, not elastic, and it's gonna hold up its shape. And the first thing that I will be doing is just based around all of the pattern pieces so that I always have one shell together with one interlining piece, because I'm going to use those as one layer to sew everything together. So let's do that quickly. So with all of the pieces now pressed and basted together, I'm gonna go ahead and close the lower front seam right here. So I'm just gonna put right sides together, and I probably have to cut towards the stitching line here in the upper front, because otherwise it's probably not gonna lay openly and you're not gonna be able to actually fit these two pieces together. But this way they are, you know, the seam allowance is opening up like that, as you can see right here. So now we can just pin them together and then sew at 1 centimeter as per usual. Like that. And let's sew here. And that is what it looks like. Looks really, really nice and tidy. Now I want to iron the seam allowance up into the upper front so that basically you're not gonna look right onto the seam if you were to do it that way. The ditch is gonna look upwards, and I don't really like that. So I'm gonna iron everything up into the upper front. You could, if you wanted, also top stitch this in place. I'm not gonna do that because I like to have a clean look, hopefully throughout this whole piece. So now I'm gonna continue with the side front pieces right here. You're gonna find 2 notches, one for the bust and then one for the lower front seam right here. So let's put these together. And right here, you probably also want to cut into the front to match those up easier. Something like that. And I'm gonna start pinning at the bust notch. And then right here, make sure that the stitching line matches up, not the seam allowance. So I'm gonna stitch right here at 1 centimeter, and both the side front and the front pieces seam allowances are matching up right here. Then this notch down here gets pinned together with your dividing seam here. And then down here, also the stitching line gets matched up. And now it's ready to sew. And that's what it looks like. I think I want to iron the seam allowance open because you can think about adding some boning if you want to the seam right here. And for that, I need to cut away the bulk of this seam right here, otherwise you're not gonna really be able to open this up nicely. And then I'm gonna use a tailor's hem where I can like really nicely put my bust area over top here. And I'm just seeing that I also have to cut into the side front pieces seam allowance here in order for it to lay flat. Otherwise it's just gonna bubble up and it's not gonna look nice. I'm gonna go ahead and add some boning to the seam allowance right here, just this lower portion. So I'm just gonna use some stitchable boning, put it on the side right here and just stitch it on, and the same to this side over here, so that I have some support but no visible top stitches. And lastly, I'm going to put the side seam together by putting right sides of the side front and the back together. And I will also be adding some boning to the seam allowances in the side seams. The bodice shell is now done. We can continue with the skirt shell. If you want to, you can already make the lining for the bodice. Apart from this seam right here, because I've used the top and bottom front pieces together, it's exactly the same, just don't add any boning basically. And the skirt also works the same as the shell, so I'm not going to show you the lining process as it's literally the same steps. So with that said, I'm going to continue with the shell skirt now. And we have like two inserts right here on top of the thighs. So these are basically some circle pieces, a quarter of a circle for each leg, and that's what we're gonna start with. So I have my front and then the two inserts right here. I'm going to sew them onto the front pieces. You can also sew them onto the side front pieces, doesn't really matter. Just be aware that everything here in the skirt lays on the bias. So it's super stretchy and you don't want to stretch it out because it's not going to fit together with the rather sturdy bodice otherwise. So just be very careful while ironing. Always iron with the grain line so that you don't stretch it out. And now we're going to look at the hem portion of our front piece. You're going to find the knee notch right here, and then on top of that you're going to find another notch that sits a teeny tiny bit below the hip notch, and that notch is the end of one of those circle inlays right here. So this gets matched up, the stitching line right here gets matched up with that notch, and then you're going to find another notch that corresponds to the knee notch in your front piece. So what you're going to do is, as per usual, putting the notches together, and then here the stitching line with the notch. And everything else you're just going to match up, and then the hem should also match in both of these pieces like that. And then you're going to sew both of these pieces together from that notch all the way down to the hem. So with the insert now attached, I'm gonna iron the seam allowance open. We're gonna line this dress anyway, so you don't have to overlock anything. And just be super careful while you're ironing this to not stretch out the seam, as both of the seams lay on the bias and you just want this to stay the length that it is. And now on the other side right here, the side front piece is going to get attached. So now we have to follow this kind of new line, and since we ironed the seam allowance open, we have to cut towards the stitching line at the notch right here so that we can actually use the remaining seam allowance in the front, because that needs to be ironed open like so. And now let's take our side front piece and align it with this piece right here. I'm gonna start just from the waist down, and you're gonna find the notch just matching up with that intersection that we created, and also match up the hip notch. And then you can see here that you're just gonna put the notch right there where the stitching line meets the notch here. Everything else the same as for the front piece. We're just gonna match up the knee notch and then also the hem like so. And now we can close the side front seam. And this seam is also gonna get ironed open. So with the front now completed, we're gonna continue with the back. So we're gonna close the side seams the same way as we did with the other seams right here. So we're just gonna match up all of the notches and then close the side seams. So now the skirt shell is done. So I'm gonna put right sides of my bodice and my skirt together, matching up all of the notches. And for your guys' pattern, I will have changed the positioning of the seam in the bodice because I moved this, but I forgot to move this seam. So these will fit together for your guys' pattern as well. And then since the whole skirt is on the bias and it seems like it doesn't fit together with the bodice, it will if you put it like down like so. and you kind of wiggle it around, you'll see that it will end up fitting together nicely. Match up the side seams. And when sewing this, I suggest you put the bias side, so the skirt side, on the bottom, that the bodice is facing up. This way the machine is helping you to put both pieces together, even though the layer down here for the skirt stretches and the upper layer doesn't. The seam allowance gets ironed into the skirt. And with that, the shell is done apart from the hem. Okay, I went ahead and finished my lining. As I said, you do exactly the same as for the shell, minus that one seam. Everything else is the same. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put right sides of the necklines together by aligning all of the notches on shell and lining, and also matching up all of the seams. And I'm gonna sew this and then also understitch the seam so that everything lays nicely. Just make sure that you clip into the seam allowance, especially in the front area right here, so that you can then also understitch nicely. With that in place now, I'm going to iron the ditch of the seam towards the facing. Okay, let's put the zipper in. I have my zipper right here. Don't worry about the threads. I basted the zipper on to try it on one more time. So let me just take that out. Okay, I have my zipper here. For putting the zipper in, you want to flip your lining out of the way, open it up and put right sides together, with the plastic stopper being right underneath the fold line. And from there on, I'm just gonna go ahead and pin this down without stretching neither the fabric nor the zipper. You're gonna find a zipper notch until where you want to pin the zipper in place. And now you wanna sew the zipper on using your zipper foot. I'm gonna do this quickly offline. I've shown it plenty of times how to put the zipper on, so I'll be back once the zipper is on the shell, and then we'll do the fixing to the lining together. Okay, and to put the lining onto the zipper band, I first like to fold the zipper band right here out of the way. So I'm doing that by folding it towards the raw edge that way. And then right here at the fold line, so not at the ditch of the seam, I'm gonna fold the whole lining over top and fix it in place with a pin. And then I'll work my way down. I don't worry about my waist seam in the shell and my waist seam in the lining matching up. It's on the inside. I really don't care. If you're a perfectionist, I can totally understand that. You'll hate me for that. I just match up all of the notches here. I'll match up the hip notch that is right here, and then also the zipper notch. And then since the lining in the center back lays on the bias and has no stay stitch on it, like I put an interfacing tape with a stay stitch onto the shell, I just try to ease both pieces together, and hopefully that does the trick, like so. And I'm going to use a one-sided foot and sew all the way from the neck to exactly the zipper notch right here. And let's clip away the seam allowance a tiny bit so that we can turn everything right sides out. And what I like to do is to just close the zipper to pop out that edge on top. And then I can also go ahead and kind of iron the seam like that. Perfect finish on the inside and on the outside. And I'm going to go ahead and iron this nicely. So with the zipper now closed, we're gonna go and close the center back in both the shell and the lining. So I'm just gonna put right sides together of the shell, making sure that right here where the zipper is, I'm actually putting the stitching line right on top of each other, like this. And now I can work my way down towards the hem and close this, and then I'll repeat the same for the lining. Let's iron the seam allowance open from the center back downwards. Like so. Let's turn this whole thing right sides out so we can check whether the zipper looks nice at the bottom or if it needs adjustments. I think we can work with it. I think this looks rather nice. So let's just go over the center back one more time so that this area right here where the zipper stops is also flat. And now the last thing is to hem this whole thing. Also hem the lining, obviously. I'm gonna go ahead and do a double rolled hem like so and just top stitch at 5 millimeters. And that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post on Sunday, so you can keep an eye out for that. The pattern will be available on my Etsy shop. That is the most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming. So check out the direct link down in the description box below. Thank you so much for you guys' support. That really means a lot to me. And if you haven't already, leave a 5-star review on your purchase. That would also help me out a lot. So thank you so much for that. Also, make sure to check out all of my socials. I post short format content like on my Instagram, on Pinterest, and on YouTube Shorts. So that might be of interest to you. In between of my uploads, I always try to give you guys some tips and tricks related to my projects every week. So if you haven't already followed me there, please do so. A special thank you to my channel members. You can get exclusive benefits through the link in the description down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!